Hello everyone. So today we are going to learn about espionage Australia over East Timor during CMATS. The delimitation of the maritime boundary between Australia and the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste has become quite complex and has caused significant tensions between the two states. So, when did it start? The story starts with the Australian boundary with Indonesia. The Australian and Indonesian government negotiated their maritime boundary over many years, reaching an alleged conclusion in 1972. However, a gap was left opposite the East Timor coastline because Portugal, as the colonial power at the time, declined to participate in formal boundary negotiations with Australia, intending to wait until the Law of the Sea negotiations were concluded. The part of the boundary that remained unresolved was called the Timor Gap. After Indonesia occupied Timor-Leste in 1975, Australia recognized the de facto situations of Indonesian government being in control of Timor-Leste, and a maritime boundary treaty was negotiated to cover the Timor Gap. This area included much oil and gas in its seabed and subsoil. With Timor-Leste achieving independence in 2002, one of the major issues facing it was to settle its maritime boundary and the oil of gas sharing revenue with Australia. On April 23, 2013, Timor-Leste had instituted proceedings the PCA seeking to set aside the CMATS Treaty of 2006. Timor-Leste claimed that Australia's intelligence operations during the CMATS treaty negotiations vitiated any resulting agreement because Australia had spied on and unlawfully listened into the Timor-Leste negotiations.
Deputy Speaker, Australia bugged East Timor's cabinet rooms during the 2004 bilateral negotiations over the Timor Sea Treaty. The operation was illegal, unscrupulous and remains unresolved. The perpetrator was the Howard government, although the Rudd, Gillard and Abbott governments are co-conspirators after the fact. And Deputy Speaker, I can explain today that the scandal has just gotten a whole lot worse because the Turnbull government has now moved to prosecute the intelligence officer who blew the whistle on the secret operation, along with his legal counsel, Bernard Collaery. Deputy Speaker, when the ADF went into East Timor in 1999, there was great public sympathy for the people of that troubled country. But what the Australian people didn't know was that behind the scenes, the Howard government was also grabbing East Timor's oil and gas, as evidenced in March 2002 when Foreign Minister Alexander Downer withdrew Australia from the maritime boundary jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice and the International Tribunal on the Law of the Sea, because he didn't dare let any independent umpire determine where the maritime border should be. The Howard government then had the Australian Secret Intelligence Service install listening devices in East Timor's ministerial offices to eavesdrop on East Timor's deliberations and put Australia in a vastly superior negotiating position. In effect, Downer, and by implication Australia, one of the richest countries in the world, forced East Timor, the poorest country in Asia, to sign a treaty which stopped them obtaining their fair share of the oil and gas revenues, and that's simply unconscionable. Deputy Speaker, Australia bugged East Timor's cabinet rooms during the 2004 bilateral negotiations over the Timor Sea Treaty.
When the espionage became known, East Timor rejected the Timor Sea Treaty and referred the matter to the International Court of Justice in The Hague. Timor's lawyers, including Bernard Collaery, intended to call witness K as a confidential witness in an in-camera hearing in March 2014. However, in December 2013, the home and office of both witness K and his lawyer, Bernard Collaery, were raided and searched by ASIO and Australian Federal Police, and many legal documents were confiscated. East Timor immediately sought an order from the ICJ for the sealing and return of the documents. In March 2014, the ICJ ordered Australia to stop spying on East Timor. The Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague considered claim by East Timor over the territory until early 2017. when East Timor dropped the ICJ case against Australia after the Australian government agreed to renegotiate. In 2018, the parties signed a new agreement which gave 80% of the profit to East Timor and 20% to Australia.
A deal more than a decade in the making.
We recognise that it is a particularly important day for Timor-Leste and another step forward in Timor's journey as a sovereign nation.
It's the first time Australia and East Timor have agreed on their maritime boundary. It'll run halfway between the two countries, giving East Timor a bigger share of the lucrative Greater Sunrise oil and gas field. It's the product of 23 months of arbitration at The Hague, forced in part after Dili accused Canberra of bugging its cabinet room during previous negotiations.
These negotiations have been tough. They were not meant to be easy. In the end, this process has indeed been a success.
The treaty also decides the revenue split for the Greater Sunrise deposit, worth up to $50 billion. East Timor gets at least 70%, but what it really wants is the resources processed on its shores. That's yet to be decided, but there are suggestions it would be too expensive for the oil and gas companies involved.
East Timor may have no time to waste in getting the Greater Sunrise oil and gas field up and running. Reserves in its vital petroleum fund are dwindling, and some analysts say if a new income stream isn't found soon, the country could go bankrupt within a decade.
But that's not the message East Timor is sending its negotiating partners.
Timor is a very patient nation. It took us 25 years to be free, and then the Indonesian occupation.
A new beginning for a fractured friendship. Stephanie March, ABC News, New York.
In June 2018, the Commonwealth Director of Public Prosecution filed criminal charges against witness K and his lawyer Bernard Collery under the National Security Information Act, which was introduced in 2004 to deal with classified and sensitive material in court case. Pre-trial proceedings continued until July 2022, when Collery's prosecution was discontinued by Attorney General Mark Travis. On February 9, 2022, ABC reports that documents filed in court claim that Australia may have been monitoring the phone calls of political leaders in East Timor since 2000. Okay, well, that's all the explanation. Hope it can be insightful. Thank you very much.